plan. So I have another question here. Is stevia considered a good sugar substitute? There are good and bad to almost everything out there when it comes to even our favorite health foods like spinach and almonds. There is a dark side. There's a dark side to everything. And in fact, sometimes with foods, they help us because they are a little bit stressful to the body. And I won't go off on too much of a tangent on that. But sometimes the reason they are good for us is somewhat because they're hard on us and make our body then react by becoming stronger. In the case of stevia, it has the benefit of not triggering a big blood sugar reaction, which is really important for our overall health, is our glucose management. So I do think that it's a wonderful alternative, especially if you have certain types of gut bugs overgrowing and you're not too strong that way, like you tend to be very prone to getting infections for things like bacteria or yeast. If so, stevia is your friend. I would just say don't overuse stevia too much in certain cases. If you are looking to get pregnant, you're trying to stay fertile, there is some there's some research that shows that it may affect us negatively in that way. So that's one thing to consider. And then another thing to consider is that it can potentially be a source of oxalates. So if you're sensitive to those and you have a high oxalate diet, like the AIP diet can tend to be quite high oxalate, for example, then you may want to use it in moderation and try a variety of different types of sugars. So if you have any further questions, please throw them in there and I'd be happy to help. I really like honey, and I like to suggest honey as much as possible for people, especially in relation to this whole immune conversation that we're having today, talking about natural things that you can do at home to strengthen your immunity. Honey is one of the most delicious ways to do that. We can sweeten things naturally. If you're not a vegan, especially, it's a great source of a lot of antimicrobial compounds. There are about 10 antimicrobial compounds in most honeys. If you're looking at Manuka honey is a great source of even some more additional antimicrobial compounds. So those would be really great to do. So finally, I'm going to come back because we've talked about diet, sleep, supplements, exercise, and stress or emotional regulation. I want to touch back on supplements. So now that I've told you that immunity isn't really about one magic bullet and that there isn't just one aspect of health that we can look at in terms to benefit our immunity the most, it's really this concert of things that we need to be thinking about. I'm going to circle back to supplements because there are some things that we can take that can make a difference to our health, and there's no reason not to use them. So some of these things like honey, we can consider them foods. Elderberry, we can consider them foods. Omega-3s, like I was mentioning before, we can consider those foods. We can just integrate those into our healthy daily diet, our weekly diet. We can get a wide variety of sources of things that have antioxidants, and these antimicrobial compounds can be found not just in honey, but in herbs and spices. We can integrate lots of those. Hi, thanks for saying hello. And when you're integrating these things into your diet and you're having a wide variety of them, you're feeding your microbiome because they may be prebiotic, they may be helping out the microbiome. Things like garlic can help to modulate the internal immune system because our microbiome communicates and educates our immune system. They really, they are the educators of the immune system to let them know what is friend, what is foe, what to react to. So by eating well, feeding our microbiome, we're really taking care of our immunity from the inside out without having to push things like our white blood cells or anything at all. So what if you're exercise intolerant? There's a great question. That is kind of what I was touching on before. If you have an autoimmune condition, especially, people tend to become exercise intolerant very quickly when they're having a flare. So if you've heard that term, it just means when there's like, a bunch of symptoms coming up again. And sometimes it's a combination of emotional stress, chemical stress, and physical stress. So if we're doing too much exercise, we might, have a setback. So it might be possible for you to find a great online exercise program like Autoimmune Strong. It's actually made for people that tend to fall into setbacks whenever they try and push themselves physically. I also have an at-home workout booklet, and you can do a lot of these things at your own pace at home, which is really wonderful. And we all have this opportunity right now, like it or not, to try at-home workouts. And I also have an immune support booklet that sort of outlines a lot of what I'm talking about today. If any of you want that, you can catch me at dana@healthywealthyhabits.ca. Just shoot me an email and I'll send you my at-home workout guide, my immune support guide. It's got, pretty much a lot of things that I would recommend to anybody to try. So yeah, you're very welcome for the info. Yeah. So honey is a great natural sweetener. I do like stevia, and there are some benefits to some others like xylitol as well. In terms of getting your sweet tooth satisfied, the best thing you can do is actually to not be afraid of some of the sweeter sources of natural carbs like fruit and vegetables that have sweetness. I mean, especially when you roast vegetables, they have a lot of sweetness, and that can be a way to quench your sweet tooth so you don't feel like you need to go reaching for sweets quite as often. And then you're also getting the fiber and the phytonutrients to feed your microbiome and support your immunity. So I hope that answers a lot of people's questions. If you have any more, I'm still here for a little bit. Can I be more specific? Can you be more specific too and tell me what to be more specific about? For example, if we eat a wide variety of things like oats, bananas, rice, these things all feed our microbiome with resistant starch, especially if it's unripened bananas, cooked and cooled rice, cooked and cooled potatoes, like you might eat in like a potato salad or like you might eat in rice balls or sushi. That cooked and cooled starch feeds our gut bacteria in a way that helps support our health. The phytonutrients I was talking about are all the colorful things. So the oranges in the carrots and orange peppers and cantaloupe, and the reds in strawberries and watermelon. So the colors give us a clue as to what they do. So the red in tomato and watermelon is lycopene, and that lycopene can be very helpful for us. And if we want to get from supplements, the anthocyanins, which can be found in purple foods, you can also take them in supplement form, like elderberry has a great wealth of anthocyanins, and these are shown to support our immunity by actually slowing down virus replication. They can actually interfere with virus replication. So if you get exposed to something, it'll keep it from replicating and taking over your body quite as quickly, so that you'll have fewer symptoms for less time and potentially not even really know that you came down with something if you take it right at the outset of a virus. In terms of other supplements, things that are good sources of vitamin C, like acerola is a very rich source of vitamin C. So are kiwi fruit, cauliflower and broccoli, sauerkraut, these things all supply vitamin C. And so this is one way that we actually can strengthen ourselves. What do I think about multivitamins, like women's once a day? So multivitamins are pretty good. Multi-minerals don't seem to work as well. So if it's a multivitamin and mineral supplement, you're probably not getting all of your minerals, because all of our food goes down through our stomach, gets digested, and then it makes its way out into this first part of our small intestine. And that's the duodenum, where almost all of our nutrient absorption happens. And in that area, things compete for absorption sites. And so some things just kind of diffuse over, they're passively absorbed. Some things are actively absorbed. A lot of our minerals, like iron, is an actively absorbed one. And so if you have calcium and magnesium, which you need, and iron, which you need, and they're all in there in the same supplement, they're competing for absorption sites, and you might miss out on optimal nutrients and optimal absorption of those nutrients, because you're not able to absorb them all at the same time. So you might want to take something separate instead. The timing of nutrients, breaking it up over the day, seems to work a lot better. There's a lot of research showing that it's better to take some of our supplements in the morning away from others, and some of our supplements at night. And if you want to ask me more about that too, I can also break that down if you have a specific question. If you're losing hair, I would first look at if it's autoimmune thyroid, then thyroid being downregulated, hypothyroid, which is usually Hashimoto's, is a hypothyroid condition. Usually also down regulates or has a feedback loop with your ferritin, which is your form of iron, that's your storage form of iron. So if you're losing a lot of hair, if it's coming out a lot, you probably are low in ferritin. So your ferritin level being associated with low thyroid is very, very common, and you might just need some more iron. So find yourself a good, well-absorbed, low-dose liquid iron, something that you can take every day. Take it away from your other supplements like your calcium, magnesium, and it would maybe really help with your hair. Now, I'm not diagnosing you and saying that that's why your hair is coming out, but it is a really common reason. And if you're not getting enough protein and you're not forming enough collagen, then your skin, your hair, your nails can also all suffer from that. And so the components of healthy collagen making are complete, proteins, the amino acids that you need, and vitamin C and silica. So if you are getting enough vitamin C and you're getting enough protein, it might be that you're missing enough silica to build strong hair and nails. So you might want to take a look at getting maybe another source of silica in your diet. Now you're in remission, you're having difficulty losing weight, your levels are in check, and maybe you have liver stones. Yeah, so a lot of women, if we have one hormone out of balance, a lot of the time we have others that are also going out of whack because they're all connected. So our adrenal glands and our thyroid are pretty well connected. There's this HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis as well. There's also connection between our ovarian hormones and stuff. So what this has to do with that is the gallbladder is very reactive to estrogen hormones. So if you have estrogen levels that are out of whack, or any other hormones that are out of whack, you might find that you're having a lot of trouble with your gallbladder, and a lot of women do. So I would also say that sometimes just digestive support in general is really great if you have any kind of thyroid issues, because oftentimes that means that you've got downregulated stomach acid and you're not digesting food as well, and this can cause issues. So any kind of digestive support, digestive enzymes are great, but if it's specifically fat related or related to bile or gallstones or those kinds of things, you might want to look at a digestive bitter formula. Those are really going to target the bile and the gallbladder and the liver and stuff like that. So medical medium for liver cleanse. Yeah, I would say that there are a few different types of ways to cleanse the liver out there. And I would recommend probably not forcing anything. If anything's a pushing kind of cleanse, you want to support probably the whole body at once if you can, instead of working on one system at a time. That can be pretty stressful for the body. If you're already someone who's dealing with some health issues, you don't want to cause more stress by forcing something from one area to another. I would probably support the whole body with a gentle whole body cleanse. If that's available to you, something that's going to nourish as well as take out at the same time, especially if you're already kind of in a health stress situation, that'll be a better way to care for yourself instead of just kind of purging. But there are a lot of nice ways that you can take care of the liver with herbs. Milk thistle's great, burdock is great, artichoke, dandelion. These are all fantastic. The liver also needs sufficient amounts of choline, which one rich source would be eggs, or you can take a phosphatidylcholine supplement, or also betaine is very important for liver health and good fat digestion and bile. So betaine is usually in beets. You can get a concentrated beet supplement if you want to just take it in like a powder or crystal form. Those are the crystal form of beets is very delicious and a good source of betaine. So those are great ways to support your liver as well. Now, Hashimoto's, yeah, it's an underdiagnosed and it's rampant. There's so many people that have it, and there are a lot of reasons why that may be. But if you have Hashimoto's, definitely be thinking about not just supporting your thyroid glands, but also supporting your adrenal glands. Especially as women, like, we take on so much. We're just like doing so much that causes that stress response. Sometimes it's the chronic low-grade everyday stress that we're dealing with, and sometimes it's acute issues. But whatever it is, anything that you can do to manage that with either herbs like adaptogenic mushrooms or some of our favorite things, you can use those with cacao, like mixed as a drink. That's really great. Ashwagandha is super supportive. A lot of people like that. Holy basil is a wonderful one. These are all herbs that can really help with these things. So licorice is supposed to help with adrenal fatigue. It does. So licorice root is a great way to support low adrenal function. Because the adrenals are also responsible for managing our electrolyte balance to some extent, part of what might be going on is, some imbalance with electrolytes. Sometimes when you're supporting your adrenals, you also want to give them a lot more minerals. So think about that as well. You might be wanting to drink broths. You might be wanting to take, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium. All of these are going to be very supportive. And if you're doing something that's very low carb or keto, then you really want to watch out for adrenal function and adrenal support, because you need more minerals if you're doing keto, and you need more minerals if you have weak adrenal function. So together, they could be, a recipe for quite a bit of a disaster unless you supplement with some minerals. Cat's claw is great. Dandelion tea, can't say enough about it. Dandelion is fantastic. Intermittent fasting. Yeah, so intermittent fasting is a way that the body can get into a state where it can do a bit of a cleanup, a bit of autophagy, where the senescent cells or the detritus, the unused or unhelpful parts, can be cleared away. And so the lysosome of the cell can actually do a little bit of a cleanup kind of activity. And so if we want to help ourselves at the cellular level, we can do, again, a cleanse that's going to provide antioxidants while also cleaning out and supporting the liver at cleaning things out. This is one way. And we can also do periods of not eating or actually feeling hungry. This is one of the best things we can do for our longevity and our biological age, to actually reduce or manage our biological age and the way that we're aging at a physical biological level. So I would definitely suggest intermittent fasting for women. Especially if we're moving towards our middle years or perimenopausal kind of stage, then I would really recommend that the meal that you skip would be dinner if you're doing a daily cycle of intermittent fasting, and not so much skipping breakfast. That is usually different than what is often recommended, but those recommendations are often made with men. And I find that in my own clinical, my own experience, that women do a lot better if they stop eating earlier at night, like maybe they cut off at 6 p.m. or something, and then they do eat breakfast. So you might want to try that if you want to experiment with a daily intermittent fasting cycle. Or time-restricted eating can also be, restricted to taking 1 or 2 fasts a week, not necessarily on a daily cycle. So you can do what works for you. There are intermittent fasting coaches out there that can actually help you with this. It can be a bit of a learning curve, so you might want to look for someone that can actually help you exactly with that. There are some really good ones out there. If you need a recommendation, just ask. Is biotin an effective supplement? Well, we have been talking a little bit about hair loss a little bit ago and what causes that. So one of the primary reasons for hair loss or hair fall is it's this really interesting process, but telogen effluvium is the term for when the cycle of hair falling out and growing back in, which a bunch of the probably hairdressers in the crowd probably know a lot about, is that cycle gets interrupted. So instead of 80% of your hair being in the growth phase and 20% being dead and ready to fall out, it switches, and usually because of some kind of stressful situation. That stressful situation can be a hormonal change like pregnancy or menopause. It can be another kind of stress in your life, like an emotional stress, or a physical stress like an accident. And usually those things are related to a sudden drop in your iron levels, and iron is usually the thing that makes the biggest difference in people's hair. And usually I find that their ferritin numbers, they could even be in the healthy range, but they're just kind of in the lower end of the healthy range. And if they bring their numbers up to like the higher end of the healthy range, then they see real improvements in their hair, around the 80 number of, ferritin levels. Usually, you get great hair growth. Biotin, however, it will be usually included in these hair supplements, but you have to be careful if you supplement with biotin for this interesting reason, which is that some people have hair falling out because of their thyroid. And if you take a biotin